My dad has a joke. He calls me 10 second Tom. Is it 10 second Tom is meant to it's meant to mean like after 10 seconds the thing is gone, you know? It's you forget it in a moment's notice. And it's because I'll be forming a thought or I'll have wanted to say something and then immediately before I can do it, I'll forget. Or I'll forget what he was saying or what the conversation was about, or just like what happened that day. Like, oh, what did you eat today? I have no idea what happened today. I have no idea. I forget all of it almost. It's only really the stuff that I consciously think about for quite some time, or details that stand out to me enough to write them down. Is that I write a lot of stuff down. I think journaling is really important, where the things that I've remembered the best have been the things that I've said in videos, because I can go back through the videos and it's kind of like a digital archive. I can remember what I said after that. But otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to know what was going on at a time like that if I didn't have it written down or said in a recording. That's the only way that I know certain things happened. And I don't even go back to all of my old videos, so I don't always know what happened where, or what happened at what time. These are things that I just kind of go off of memory, and because it's shaky, because it's not really consistent, I don't always have the best timeline for how things happened or where they happened, and so I just kind of had to go off of what I have, and even that, it's kind of difficult to pinpoint what goes where, because it seems all over the place. Like, it's daunting, you know, when you have a playlist of 1,200 videos. There's so many YouTube videos that it's kind of hard to be able to tell what goes where, and I mean, I have even more than that. Like, the playlist doesn't even encompass all the videos that I made, so there's a lot of stuff. And when I go back through my journals or like stuff that I have written down, it's always spread out all over the place. Like, it's never really in one journal. It just goes all over the place. And some things I have written down in text files, but my computer's changed operating systems so many times that a lot of the old text files I had I don't even have. So I have to go out of scraps of paper that I had and stuff like that. You know, sometimes on my desk I'll have like a napkin that I used when I was eating, and I'll get an idea or I'll have something I want to remember, and I'll scribble down on it what I wanted to remember, and so it's just on the napkin there, and I can sit there and I can read what it was that I wanted to remember. But this is like a verbal tick that I have now when I talk to people on Discord now, is that I don't talk to people on Discord very often. I don't do voice calls very often, just because I don't really like them very much. But the few times where I do them, usually like I have a verbal tick where I say, oh, I'm gonna write that down. I should write that down. Those are like my two favorite sentences now, because I forget so much that, like, any interesting idea or anything that I think is like even remotely unique, I just have to write down immediately. And people laugh at me for it. They're like, haha, Star is doing his thing again. But I don't really think it's a joke. Like, it's probably pretty funny, but I don't really think it's a joke when I do it. Like, to me, it's like, oh, I need to write this stuff down, you know? But I forget a lot of stuff. And like, there's large patches of my life that other people say that they experienced with me, or that they recognize that I did, and I don't remember doing or saying those things. And it's kind of difficult to be able to pinpoint what's true and what's not. I just kind of assume that anything that people tell me about what I've done or what I've said is true, unless I have some kind of like direct evidence against it. But usually those cases are few and far between. I just kind of go with what people say, and if someone's saying that I did something, it's usually that's good enough for me, just because I can't remember either way. So what motivation would someone have to make something up, you know? There's probably not much of one there, so I just kind of go off of what other people say that I've said, or this and that. So usually usually I can't remember most things. I have to keep them written down. It's like a catalog. Is that when I have stuff that's happened in the past, or things that I've said in videos, in a logged form, a written logged form, I can go back through, and I don't really categorize much. I might keep the date on there, and if the date's on there, it'll be easier, but sometimes I have to date back stuff myself because I have to go from the context of what I had written. And I can use context clues from like stuff that I said in videos, like, okay, I was on this sterner shit at the time or something, so this is probably from a year ago or something like that. And I can kind of pinpoint where each one goes, but sometimes there's just not a video to correspond with the written paper. So I have trouble, if there's no date written on it, I have trouble being able to tell what goes where, and what exact time I was thinking that, or what exact time that specific thing happened. So I just have it written down. And it's hard to be able to tell, like, is this a dream journal, or did I not specify? Because that's the other thing that I do, is that I've noticed that, like, I'll have a dream about something, or I'll have, like, multiple dreams about something, and when I wake up, the memory will seem kind of distant. Like, it'll seem almost like it happened, where I'll bring it up to someone and they say, no, I never said that, I never did that. And I think, well, it must be a dream, but it doesn't feel like the dreams are dreams themselves. Like, it feels like they're more real than reality in a sense, where, like, what the memories of the dreams are memories that end up blending, blending in with what reality is, where they become kind of inseparable from one another, where they mix together in a way. And so it makes it really difficult to tell what happened and what hasn't, because the dreams end up, you can't quite tell if they're real or not. And so they end up mixing together. And that's one of the other hard parts, is that, okay, well, what if you remember parts of a dream better than you remember what actually happened? And then the dream ends up superseding what actually happened. And that's one of the difficult parts, is that I'm kind of a stickler for remembering little details and things like this. I really like little details. I like remembering little details because I fixate on them. There's that quote, it's like, the little things aren't so little in life, or the little things aren't so little at all, or they become big. They're like the primary base that builds up what your experience is. Those are the things that matter the most, and that kind of thing. I feel that a lot. I feel that a lot with my own life, where even when I was like very, very little, like as a toddler, I focused on the most mundane things. When I started out doing photography, taking pictures, I was about 7 years old when my grandma gave me a camera. And I started taking pictures all the time, but I didn't take pictures of interesting stuff. I took pictures of little bitty things, things I found in my house, mundane events, people just hanging out in the most mundane ways. And the weird thing is that it was a conscious choice. I didn't quite understand why. I didn't have the analytical mindset to be able to pick apart why I was doing it, but I knew that I liked mundane things. I knew what mundane was as a distinction from not mundane, from normal and not normal. So I knew what it was I was doing. I knew I had a distinct preference for recording and taking pictures of mundane things. And so I like remembering those little bitty events, the little bitty things that, like, they don't seem unique at first, but if you just reinterpret them, or if you view them in a broader context, or maybe not view them in a context at all, just see them by themselves. Like, the fact that they're happening is why they're interesting. Like, the fact that the detail happened at all is why it's interesting. So I tend to remember little bits of information, kind of weird things. And that's hard to explain, is that I forget so much. I forget a lot of the little stuff, I forget the big stuff. There's big patches of my own life that I've forgotten at this point. But there's, like, weird stuff that I do remember. And so it's a strange pseudo-dichotomy, I guess, where it's like the contradiction. It's the two end up opposing one another in a way, at least to normal people, I think. And so it's about almost everything I forget. In most cases, I have to make a conscious effort to remember things. Try really hard, write it down several times, or write it down one time and just keep thinking about it. Now, the things that I tend to remember are the things that made enough of an impact that I just kept thinking about it. Oh, this is a cool picture of a cat running around or something, and so I'm going to think about how unique this cat was again and again, and maybe it's a story I'll tell later on or something. But I forget most things. So the things that I usually remember, they tend to be really unique. But it was weird how this came about, because when I was in the mental hospital the second time I went to the mental hospital, they gave me this antipsychotics and these sedatives. I don't remember exactly what sedative it was that I took, but one of the side effects was that it can greatly harm your memory going forward, and the antipsychotics I took had a similar effect. I don't remember if it was Risperdal at the time, because it was Risperdal I took, and there was something else. I don't remember what the other thing was, but my memory wasn't too great taking what was it? I took some like normie SSRI medications like Lexapro and what was it? It's the one that everyone memes about. What is it? It's the most commonly prescribed antidepressant. I can't remember what it's called. Fluxazine is what it's called. But it has a brand name that I can't. Prozac. It's called Prozac. Okay. Yeah, no, I took a really high dose of Prozac, and I took Lexapro and this and that. And these things, these are like common medications. I took those earlier into my life. Or into my medicated life, I guess. And those didn't really have those kind of side effects, but once you start getting into Latuda and atypical antipsychotics and stuff, it just starts to become a little bit of a blur. And so there was a sedative that they gave me, and there was an antipsychotic that they gave me that had memory harming effects, and ever since then I haven't really been able to remember the same. But it was interesting because the day that I went home, it was actually snowing the day that I went home, and I remember that. But the day that I went home, I was trying to like map out my neighborhood and the city that I lived in, because it only took me 2 days the first time around to basically memorize the entire layout of the city that I was in. My memory was really good. But by the time I got home, I couldn't remember where anything was. It was like I was distraught. It was like I felt so defeated in that moment, being around this neighborhood in the city that I kind of cared about and found kind of comfy and enjoyed being in to an extent. I just couldn't remember where anything was anymore, and it felt like I was utterly defeated, like I wanted to fall down to the ground and, slam my head against something. But that was like the before and after picture, is that, before it's like I can remember the entire layout of the city after like 2 days, and now I know where everything is. And of course it got reinforced because I walked every single day for hours and hours. Sometimes like for like a full 8 hours, like a full work day, I was walking all the time. When I got home from the mental hospital, it was like I looked around me and I had no idea where anything was anymore. Oh, that's the star memory story. I forget everything.